Hey guys, Joe here at the Portland Seattle Coffee Gear, bringing you my love of pour over. We're gonna do a 3-part video where I impart my knowledge and love of the humble cup of coffee and how to go about engineering it for what you want to drink at home. Today, we are going to start with choosing your brewer, which I would say is the second most important step in making the proper cup of pour over. And in my mind, it really boils down to 2 separate systems. You have flow restriction, which give you an easy way to reproduce results. It's reliable. You don't need to get all of the bells and whistles and the accoutrement to make the same cup of coffee 2 days in a row. And then we have the non-flow restrictors, or the advanced class, that require a good kettle, a good pour rate, practice, a timer, a scale, and a good eye for a delicious cup of coffee. So really, if you're just starting out in the pour-over scene, I would suggest looking at the Kalita, the Bonavita, the brewers that have 1 to 2 holes in the bottom. That teeny little hole will truncate the flow of water, which means your percolation, which is water passing through a filter, turns into more of a hybrid between percolation and immersion. When that happens, it adds less agitation to the system, so it evens out extraction, and it maintains a constant flow of water. So a gooseneck kettle, while it is important, is less needed, less necessary for something with that teeny single hole in the bottom, mostly because water's just going to come out at the rate it does. There are 2 basic styles of flow restriction. There are ones that are just a hole, be it 1 hole, 2 hole, or 3 holes, depending on the company and the generation of brewer. And then there are flow restrictors that have a little door that you can close. This turns percolation immersion hybrids into pure immersion brewing. You can fill this up with water, let it sit on top of your mug for 2.5 minutes, open it up, and go. These are great for people who like body. Doesn't matter the filter you put in here, because our water and our coffee are in contact for so long, you get body. As our coffee particulate dissolves, you just get more of that dissolution of product that ends up in your cup with these, which allows you to sort of gateway into the pour over scene. If you're going from French press or espresso and you really want to get into single cup brewing, it will take something that has heavier flavor structure and break it down into something that's cleaner and a little bit brighter, gives you the joys and the benefits of a paper filter, but just enough body that it's not smacking you in the face with super bright flavor. With Kalita, this is the Kalita Wave. It's a flat-bottom 3-hole brewer. It's an interesting hybrid between flow restriction and non-flow restriction. Those 3 holes give you a lot of water flow. There's a little wedge or hump in the bottom that allows for more passage of water and not clogging any systems. Plus the filter design adds some motion to what you're doing, which evens out extraction, gives you a lot of brightness, and also basically gives a ceiling to the flavor. What you get is a very beautiful, crisp symphony that doesn't get too all over the place without needing as accurate of a pour as something like these brewers. You start to move into things where a gooseneck kettle, scales to help you dose properly is really important, but once again, it's much easier to reproduce results off of something like this than it is like this. This is the Hario V60. This uses a very coarse paper filter, which allows a lot of particulate through, but requires a significantly more accurate pour than our flow restrictors. Water in is water out. It's on you manipulating grind size, water temperature, and pour rate to engineer your cup of coffee. It really requires a lot of forethought when you're just learning the system, because reproducing results becomes exponentially more difficult. Learning how to pour at the same rate every day is really good. That's what scales with timers built into them become very helpful. You can say, hey, I poured in 45 seconds today. That's really fast. If you like body, this is another great brewing method to impart that into your cup of coffee and still get those benefits of clarity of flavor and brightness. At the opposite end of that, you have the Chemex, which has the thickest filter, the biggest hole, and the most chance to not get right. This is work intensive. Learning your recipes, learning your ratios is very helpful. You definitely need a gooseneck kettle with items like this, and you definitely need to work on your pour. If you like really clear, crisp coffee like I do, Chemex is ideal because of that filter. It's really, really thick, really heavy, so it absorbs a lot of the body, a lot of the particulate. What people call boldness is usually body, is what they're actually referring to. And this takes that boldness away, but adds a lot more nuance. So I think I get more flavor out of something like this than I do out of these, but it's a lot harder for me to make the same cup of coffee twice at 5 in the morning when I'm not awake and haven't had any coffee yet. And then there's expert mode. This is the Japanese flannel pot. It uses a legitimate cloth filter to filter your coffee out. It requires the most control over your pour and the most awareness. It also requires the most thermal stability. So having a kettle that can get up to heat and maintain that heat quickly is really important, because there's a lot of space here for energy to be lost. So, having an induction-capable kettle is very helpful. You can just leave it on your induction cooktop and it'll always maintain that temperature while you're pouring very slowly to engineer the same cup of coffee that you would get out of these. You get the strangest mixture of body and flavor with a flannel brewer, just because that cloth filter is so much coarser than anything else. You end up with a lot more meat to the body, not necessarily particulate, but the style of flavor that translates through is more akin to metal filtered pour over French press than it is to a paper filtered Melita. So the first step is ultimately figuring out how much work you want to do when you're making your cup of coffee in the morning, how much stuff you want to use to get that cup of coffee, and ultimately how you want to enjoy it. Join us in part 2, and we'll talk about the grind.